Hi, I'm Michael from 1-Bit Fever Dreams. If you're like me, you appreciate the old black and white Macintoshes such as this Mac Plus. But you also gained an appreciation for the IBM side of things back in the day. What if your keyboard guilty pleasure is the Model M, such as this recreation USB keyboard from Unicomp, which contains a buckling spring mechanism just like back in the day? Today, the two worlds are fused together. And as a side bonus, wireless gamepads work as well. Welcome to the amazing project of USB for VC, where VC stands for Vintage Computer. I'll show you how it works in just a moment, but there was new support just added for the early Macs such as the Plus, the 512, and the 128, as well as keeping support for the 80B Macs, and adding support for the freaking Apple Lisa computer. So if you want to see how it works, stick around. So this is the USB 4 VC all mounted up. There's a Raspberry Pi 3B inside with 4 USB ports, as well as the protocol card already installed. I already own the IBM PC protocol card, which I've been using for a year. You can see the serial port, PS2 ports, as well as the DB15 joystick port. But here you can see the brand new protocol card. There's a jack for the keyboard for the Apple Lisa, the jack for the early Mac, and a serial mouse, as well as 80B ports if you need to use a more recent Mac. So let's connect the serial mouse, this 4P 4C connector for the keyboard, USB-C power, and then you connect your modern devices. So here I have a keyboard and a mouse. And lastly, assuming you've synced it beforehand, you can simply connect your wireless gamepad just by powering it up. After a few seconds it connects, and there you go. So let's take it out for a spin. Let's start with the most obvious game that can take advantage of gamepad input, the Mac port of Archon. My favorite 1v1 hot seat game that I played to death with my brother back in the day. You can also play against a computer. In the chess-like board view, mouse control makes more sense. It lets you cover great distances without waiting as you select your pieces. However, in the combat view, only the directional information is used, so a gamepad thumbstick is more than enough. There's virtually no lag, and it plays great right out of the gate. The only thing missing is the ability to map out the D-pad for those pure horizontal and vertical movement, which would help shooting in those directions. Speaking of the devil, the USB 4 VC configurator got an update a few days after I started recording for this video. It can now deal with the early Mac protocol card. It's very simple to use. Define a mapping for each game or for each of similarly grouped game. You then define a mapping on your controller of choice to your vintage input of choice. One great thing about this is that the modern input device does not have to keep a one-on-one relationship to the vintage input device it tries to imitate. For example, a gamepad has many buttons, triggers, and analog stick controls. Each one of these can map to a different vintage side control. For example, the D-pad on the PlayStation controller can map to the vintage mouse movement behavior, while at the same time, the trigger control might map to a specific keyboard key. Transporting your saved mappings is as easy as clicking on the save button below, which puts it on a USB stick, which you then connect to the USB 4 VC's Raspberry Pi. Then we use its menu to navigate to an item that lets you import them. Next, when we're ready to use that specific mapping, you press on OK in the main menu, navigate to which vintage side input you want to use, and press on the button until you get what you want. Navigate to the last menu item and click on Save. you're ready to go. Next up, we have an interesting case with the very well-known Crystal Quest. The very first time you interact with this mouse-only game, you realize you must deal and manage your ship's momentum in order to go around. Meaning, your mouse position will not directly control your ship's position one-on-one, but instead, create momentum in the direction into which you drag your mouse. If you stop moving your mouse, your ship will keep going in that direction unless you intervene, just like real objects in space.
Oh, that's nice.
To change direction, you have to think about cancelling your current momentum by dragging into the opposite direction, and or force a drag into your chosen new direction. It takes a while to get used to, and it's part of why this game is unforgettable on the Macintosh.
Oh, that's nice.
The mouse allows you to do this kind of fast, but you'll still feel the inertia of your ship when you want to change course rapidly as you react to the screen. If you use the gamepad, everything is still possible with the thumbstick, but under default settings, everything is slower. Your ship will feel heavier. In a way, it gives you a more deliberate, careful control at the price of not doing snappy reactions like with the mouse. I don't hate it, it's kind of the different way to play it. Again, things will only improve if you can map the special bomb keyboard key into the gamepad itself when the Configurator app adds this new protocol card to its list. Next up is Crab Attack 2, a kind of Space Invader look-alike. It's very mouse intensive. It needs fast movement and a ridiculous amounts of button mashing. While you attempt to survive the onslaught of enemies, you'll be tempted to double tap, or even triple tap your mouse button, which is a perfect use case for dishing out that damage on a throwaway replaceable USB mouse rather than on your precious vintage Mac mouse. I saved the best for last. The Mac gaming era defining Dark Castle from Silicon Beach Software. In case you're not aware, it's a platformer game that's oddly incredibly well suited for a gamepad. You can run, jump around, pick up objects, and throw rocks while you stand. The mouse click is normally used to shoot, and the mouse Y movement is used to change your arm angle. Here I map the shooting to the right trigger of my gamepad, and the right analog stick Y axis to aiming. Everything feels great with the gamepad, with the exception of maybe the aiming, which makes me feel a bit less accurate than I'm used to. Maybe it's only a question of time and training, since I've played this game so many times, and my muscle memory is fully dedicated to the mouse. This area that's reminiscent of the classic Donkey Kong Jr. arcade game is a special use case for the D-pad for movement alongside the left analog stick. With the D-pad, you can accurately press the exact number of times you want to move over a specific direction. In order to go across one rope, you must press that direction exactly twice, as your character can lean left or right on a single rope. If you mess up and move towards empty space, you could fall down to the dungeon, which is a major punishment in this game, as you have to find a dungeon key and claw your way back to the main hall again. And in case you're curious or you want to try my selection for yourself, if you ever lay your hands on a USB for VC, here's my mapping. I'll provide a download link to my config file in JSON format in the description below, which you can dump in a special folder of the USB stick. The instructions are straightforward and can be found in the USB for VC GitHub website. Again, it'll be linked. So that's my little demonstration. You probably want to know if I recommend this product. You can follow the link to the Tindie store and check it out. In there, you'll find optional male-to-male cables that have to run between the protocol card and your vintage computer, in case you need them. I just want to say I'm not affiliated with Deku Nukem, who is the originator of the project. I just find it really neat and wanted to share my experience about it. Time for some pros and cons. Pro. Lots of early Macs out there are being sold without keyboards, without power cables, and straight up just a machine. This is a great way to circumvent having to source an early serial mouse or keyboard, which can push up near $100 or more. This goes double if you ever landed a Lisa without a keyboard. The computer itself is already hard to find and or expensive. Finding a keyboard on top of that is a major extra quest on itself. Con. The project requires a Raspberry Pi. A Model 3 is plenty fine, though you can use a 4 even if it's a bit overkill. It's been tough to find Pis due to heavy rampant scalping for the last 2 years, but very recently it's been increasingly possible to find them again, especially if you use rpilocator.com, which pops out minutes-old alerts when online vendors get stock and make it available to buy. You can follow its Twitter or Mastodon account to learn more about how to up your chances of being fast enough to react to these alerts. I've successfully bought a Pi 0 and a Pi 3A in 2023 by following their advice. Pro. Re-exploring old games with new controllers, especially the gamepad, is a fresh experience. These old games are generally harder than modern variants, and gaining any kind of edge, controller-wise, is a good thing. I'll definitely try to replay Dark Castle and attempt the harder difficulties with a gamepad. Con. This is more expensive than direct solutions that only attempt to link, say, a USB keyboard to your old early Mac. It's meant to be versatile and carry lots of options, so you have to keep in mind that the higher price comes with the territory. If you don't own a collection of vintage computers and would only want to find a missing keyboard solution for a Mac Plus and stay frugal, the USB for VC is probably not for you. Pro. If you want to explore both the Mac and PC side of things, I think the project scales up really well in value, as you only need one base unit and only one Raspberry Pi. You just swap the protocol cards in seconds and you're good to go to the other world. And by the way, Deku Nukem, the creator of the project, invites other people to try to design their own protocol cards. As of April 2023, there was someone on the Discord server who was working on a BBC Micro protocol card. Who knows which other computers will be supported in the future. Pro. The joystick options in the early Mac days were frankly terrible, especially with the likes of the Craft joystick, which I've personally seen as the most popular back in the day. They are now incredibly hard to find in good shape. Also, when they are used, they replace the serial mouse's port and forces you to use the stick for normal mousing operations. With the USB for VC, you don't have to make this compromise. You can have redundant devices mapping to the mouse if that's what you want. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this little review of this cool project bridging old tech with current tech, as vintage computer enthusiasts scramble to keep it all operational. This certainly helps the cause. I hope this was as interesting to you as it was for me, and I'll be releasing new videos soon. Take care.